Well, we're back in Karna's garden, and I don't know if you remember my beds in the front from last week, but they were covered with leaves as thick as you can still see in the middle, probably thicker. So I was out on Sunday when it was very cold, and I did get a lot of work done. I got most of the leaves out of this bed, but then I just had to stop and wait for a warmer day. So this is really the first time I've been out since Sunday. So I'm gonna see what's going on in my garden as well as you. One thing you can see is there are a lot of tulips up. And so far, knock on wood, the rabbits haven't bothered them this year. Back behind, those are irises, and you'll see them later on in the summer when they're blooming. They're a beautiful color. These are giant alums. They are the kind that get a very large plume on the tops of them when they bloom. So we'll take a look at those later on when they're blooming, and they're pretty spectacular. See, I had a tree that went in the center there that was very large, and it finally started to be so much on the roof that I had that tree taken out, and now I've replanted it. While the tree was there, none of these tulips came up, and that's because the tree was taking all the nutrition out of the ground. But once the tree was down for a couple years, all of a sudden the tulips started popping back up again. You can see them back there and in here. They're mostly red. These, you probably have figured out by now that I like evergreens a lot. I have some beautiful evergreens. These are a cedar that I didn't plant. The birds planted 2 of them here. A friend told me that the birds really like these plants, so I'm just gonna let them go for a while. They're not hurting anything in this spot. If I have to take them out later, I will. I have a tree peony, and you can see, hopefully the cold didn't bother it too much. You can see that the buds are coming on it. A little bit of it looks like it might have died over the winter, but the flowers are gigantic. We can look at them again after it blooms. Now you're seeing a picture of the magnolia that we looked at earlier, and has started to bloom. The blooms are a little tight right now because of the cold, but when they loosen up, they're just like I don't think lacy's the right word, but we'll have to take a picture at that time and show you. I have started to clean up this garden, and you might remember that we looked at these Hellebore when the snow was still on the ground, and as I pushed it aside, we found the flowers blooming underneath the snow. So now I've trimmed a lot of the dead parts of the plant away, but they're coming back, and you can see there's more flowers now, and they're looking a little happier once they were uncovered. This bed is still really covered, as you can see by the leaves, and I do need to get them off of this bed, but this week it's rained most of the week, so I haven't been able to be out here. Now I brought along, you might have seen me pointing at some things with this little tool, and you're probably saying, well, what is that for? It actually comes from the Tools for Children. It's a child's tool, but it's one of my favorites because I can reach, there's a little stone here, I can reach way back in here and use it. And now you can probably see right here the hostas that are coming up out of the ground, which is why I need to really get these leaves off. Here's more over here. But it just works perfectly. It doesn't hurt the plants underneath because it's very light. and it just works so perfectly for this kind of thing. Once I get it to the edge, then I have an easier time of putting it into my container, and I don't have to worry so much about having actually washed on any of the plants. So here you can see a hosta that is, these are very big hostas. This one's really starting to come up. You can see that the geraniums don't mind the cold. They're all coming up everywhere, and they do spread, but I'm tolerant of them, and if I don't like them, I can pull them out. And the birds like this little bird bath here. They come to visit it pretty often. It's not very big, so you have to put water in it pretty frequently, but birds don't like deep bird baths, so it's better to have it shallow. Right here I have some Ligularia coming up. Once as I got them uncovered by the really wet, thick leaves. You can see I haven't gotten them all of here yet, but they're still really popping up out of the ground. But you can see the bloodroot is really flowered, and usually once it gets a little warmer than it is right now, those little flowers will, as I think I said before, be covered with bees. Now you can see the primrose really coming out here in the garden, and I really like them. They do spread, but I don't really mind if they spread. Here's one that's been flowering. Right here is a bleeding heart that has a pale green leaf. You can kind of see the leaves on that right now. And it's very beautiful and unusual. At least to me it's unusual. And the nice thing about it is that it lasts for an extremely long time in the garden. I thought that we'd come back to this little flower bed for a minute to see whether or not the miniature bleeding hearts are coming up. You can see that they are. They'll get a lot rounder and bigger as they grow. They have beautiful little hearts on them, and they bloom pretty much the entire summer. Dwarf and miniature things, plants, and so here, this almost looks like that bleeding heart, but it isn't. It's a dwarf goat's beard. And I have large goat's beard in my garden as well that we can look at after they start really coming out of the ground. We can check before we stop for the day to see if they are coming up, just in case they are. They're very large. These are very small. Now, just to keep you intrigued, we will show you a mystery plant. I don't recall planting it, and I have no idea what it is. Maybe you know, and if you do, let us know. Here they are. We're back in our front yard again. Actually, we can show you these coral bell. They don't particularly like a little cold, but they look like they fared fairly well through this. They're really my favorite coral bell. They just have a beautiful color to them. But you wouldn't notice them, you wouldn't see them if you just didn't get out in your garden. Even on these cold days, just dress warmly, get in your garden, see what's coming up. That's the way you can really enjoy your garden.